Welcome to the Why Isn't It Working Business and Tech podcast, talking all things business and tech in the emerging and enterprise space. Here are your hosts, Karl Wood and Michael Hamilton.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast. Today we have Mark Montoya. He is the Chief Data Officer at the Government Blockchain Association in the US. How are you today, Mark?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. And as always, I have Mr. Karl Wood with me today. How are you, Karl?
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael.
Cool. Oh, Karl, let's kick off the first question for Mark. It's quite an exciting chat we're going to have.
Absolutely. And Mark, thank you very much for joining us. I know the time difference, can be a bit killer sometimes, so we much appreciate it. Now, Government Blockchain Association. Now, government's not the first thing that people think about when they think blockchain or decentralization. So can you tell us a bit about the organization and what the main mission focus is?
Yeah, so the Government Blockchain Association, they're an association of, I guess you could say, like-minded people that want to connect organizations, governments, state entities together to get an understanding and education on blockchain and cryptocurrency type of technology. We like to connect them and try to find common solutions between the two organizations or the organizations. Yeah.
Absolutely, that sounds fantastic. So I guess it's a bit of a case of now melding, sort of the government regulation components with, the foresight and also the innovation that comes from the private sector, because ultimately blockchain's now out in the open, and this is something that realistically is going to be quite an important technology in the future, probably more so than people think, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, exactly. And it's I call it a greenfield, such a new field in technology that a lot of people are still trying to understand it. GBA, for example, still trying to understand and educate people on it. And the industry is constantly changing. Anything it's not working correctly now is they continue to actually make it better, make it more usable. One thing that we do lack is easy user interfaces or easy accessibility to people. It's still kind of I call it kind of like the hobbyist group still that know more about it than the general person. Like my grandmother doesn't know anything about blockchain, and I don't think she really cares about blockchain. So,
and that's true, isn't it? Because most of the time, if we think about blockchain, one of the first things that comes to mind is really the coins that have come out of this. So we look at things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and those sort of cryptocurrencies. But you're right, the average person on the street isn't really going to be concerned with, how the technology works. They simply want to know, can I transfer a monetary value from one person to another? Will it be safe, and will it be, protected in the same way that, say, for example, our SWIFT gateways are today with the banking industry as well?
Oh yeah, exactly. And again, it's like, I always give an example. It's like an email message, right? And we know the whole MIME format in the background, but the front end, you have a GUI interface, and someone types in the email and you send it, and it can be going from Gmail, it goes to Apple Mail, it goes to Thunderbird, it goes to all these various applications, but you don't care what the underlying technology is. And same thing with Bitcoin. We understand the value it's going to add for transactions and information exchange, but people shouldn't really care about the technology underneath it. They just want to make sure that it gets from point A to point B. But that's a lot to get from point A to point B using this technology. And obviously, we can talk about the fees and remittances and supply chain. There's a lot of benefits to it as it goes in the future. But the whole hidden behind some type of interface still needs to happen, still needs to be easy to use for individuals.
So I guess, Mark, is the core focus then, like you said, really about making a unified experience across blockchain for most people? And is the whole point, I guess, to make it more accessible by introducing those sort of standards, and I guess regulation is probably not the right word, but a bit of oversight on the technology process as well?
Yeah. Well, there's two camps. I believe that in order to have some type of technology and more people to adopt it, people want to be safe. And that's why a lot of the regulations have a consumer focus on it and an investor focus, make sure that the consumer is protected and the investor is protected, right? Investor provides all the money for the technology. And at times, governments are quick to react. They're very reactive to something they don't understand. It's like when you see something, let's kill it, that whole thing. But if they don't understand technology, they're quick to say, okay, we don't understand it, so we're going to just totally restrict it totally. It's going to be totally illegal until we actually get a handle on it. And that's not good. It stifles innovation. A good way, and Australia is great at this. Australia says we have existing regulations where this blockchain technology is going to fall into, but we're not going to create all this new regulation. We're going to see how it can fit in existing regulation and let the marketplace decide how it's going to be used. And then if we see if it's going to affect wrongly on the populace, then we can actually extend the regulations instead of actually creating new regulations and stopping it. So I think it's very good from what Australia has done.
It has been interesting here to watch. And I guess the other thing as well, Mark, is, blockchain kind of has a bit of a black cloud above it from the past. A lot of people originally that got into the idea were more around the decentralization and moving away from fiat currency. Unfortunately, we saw the activities of some, illegal prosperity across, things like Silk Road, people moving, coin to coin, not having any traceability. But really, when we look at this, the benefits really outweigh the negative. And in any currency, it doesn't matter. People obviously will launder money today in fiat currency, but there's obviously not such a hype about it because it hasn't been, opposed, so to speak, by interests outside of it. So I guess it's also the case of giving, blockchain a bit more of a squeaky clean image, isn't it?
Yes, and that's maybe it's a whole marketing thing. Maybe blockchain needs to have a marketing campaign, kind of like Nike, just do it type stuff. But going back to your point of the Silk Road, there needs to be a distinction between Bitcoin, which is the gold standard, and these cryptocurrencies and tokens. Bitcoin has never been hacked, right? It does get a bad rap because of it's actually synonymous. It's not totally anonymous, and you can actually trace a transaction to a person IP address, but it's never been hacked, and it's fascinating that we say Satoshi Nakamoto, who wrote the white paper. The network has monetary value and incentive and digital scarcity built into it, which is fascinating. But going back to the whole tokens and digital currency, again, still a green field. There's still a lot of problems, like for smart contracts. People write bad code, and hackers being able to get into that, and steal like $2 million with the first Ethereum network. You have Ethereum and Classic now, but you're going to have that throughout. You're going to have some of the bad players, but the bigger picture is the idea of actually exchanging value. Bitcoin's great. But the ability to actually have what I call programmable money in the tokens and being able to tie something that's physical to a digital representation of that, I think that's very powerful. And once you do that, it goes back to the whole privacy and anonymity thing. It gives people power to exchange goods on their terms, decentralized with no centralized entity. And on the first day, you talked about Silk Road. I don't know if you guys realize they're actually making a movie on Silk Road now. I just saw the previews for it. And the book, anybody that's out there, American Kingpin, The Story of the Silk Road, is a fabulous book. It's a great book, and I'm glad they made a movie out of it, but the book is awesome. It's almost like Cuckoo's Egg when it first came out, trying to find the first hacker.
It's a new social network movie, eh? It's the equivalent, I think, of our age now.
Yeah.
Very much. But what's I think maybe that aha moment, or that moment when you were attracted to blockchain, or was it crypto in case? What year was it? What drove you to get involved with blockchain? Was it a person, an event, anything like that?
So it was actually it's when Mt. Grox actually the hack in Mt. Grox, right? And I was like, trying to figure out, what is all this about? I did hear about the Silk Road, but it was mainly Mt. Grox at the time. Obviously Silk Road, I think got taken down in 2014, I think I want to say, when it actually took it down. So it was going, but it was Mt. Grox, and trying to figure out what the big deal is about it is. So my day job, I work for a U.S. federal regulator, and we do a lot of research. I work in Division of Insurance and Research, and we write a lot of research papers. And one of the economists, and he's young, just came out of college, decided to write a paper on Bitcoin, and that's when I first heard about it. He talked about Bitcoin, talked about digital scarcity, talked about there's only going to be 21 million coins that's going to be published. Here's some of the cons with it. And then he relates it back to if banks start doing it. And then how do you then categorize that? And it's way before talking about crypto assets and stable coins and all that. He was bringing up all these questions, which was great. And his research is great. Young minds thinking outside the box, which was awesome. And that's when I first heard about it. And then I started feeling more and more, wanting to know more about the protocol, started reading more and more about Bitcoin, understanding what it's all about. And the aha moment was I actually, read all these books about Bitcoin, they always reference the white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto. And until I read that paper, now that's when I had the aha moment, a cashless peer-to-peer system that's managed in and of itself through incentives, right? Through this whole crypto economic piece of it. It was just fascinating. And I'm still fascinated with the crypto economics piece of Bitcoin. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And actually being like the chief data officer for the organization for GBA, obviously you started off with associating Bitcoin and with cryptocurrency and with blockchain, right? So Bitcoin's been driving the conversations around, around the table, around corporates and around families and friends and so forth. But what was the other use cases that you saw after you learned about Bitcoin and financial transactions? Was there any other use cases that surprised you that come off the blockchain, like for example, video streaming, things like that? Is there anything that's really surprising you?
Well, yeah. There's a couple of there's. I'm going to just mention two of them. The first one is financial inclusion, the ability to have almost these micro economies, right? Being able to have an open source code and be able to have some type of monetary system built and having some type of micro economy, which I think freaks out a lot of people, a lot of governments. But being able to say there's a kid in India that's actually he wants to raise some money to go to college, and being able to give him some type of cryptocurrency for what he's doing in order to raise money for college, I think is great. So I think this technology levels the financial inclusion playing field. Because I think, I don't know if it's right, 7 billion people are still underbanked and underserved from financial institutions. So I think this is one big thing about it. And that's when I saw the technology, this is great, financial inclusion. The second aspect of it is what you're talking about, videos and gaming. I think the fascinating piece of, again, being able to represent something that's actually physical in the digital world, and being able to add any item added to this token is like art. And I did read something like Beyonce comes out with a record, and she's only going to have it on the via cryptocurrency or a token. So it's called Beyonce token, and she releases an album that's only 500. And just that scarcity of it, and being able to send it out to individuals and be able to collect it from that aspect of it. And it's been happening in the gaming world for a long time, being able to collect those various tokens. And it's that world meet in the physical world, and you can see the mashup. You can see this virtual world and this physical world starting to mend, and it's causing a lot of conflict, right? But it's actually changed in the progression of that moving forward. I'm just fascinated to see what's going to happen in the next couple of years. I think it's great.
I know. So I myself personally was more surprised when I talked to a lot of technologists on the blockchain, and seeing how video streaming can be made more efficient on the blockchain. That was something that surprised me the last couple of years, and getting outside that Bitcoin financial conversation and seeing another use case, and then watching this whole new world expand. And how are you finding the members that you are signing up with the GBA or with the Government Blockchain Association? What sort of people are coming to the organization?
Yeah. So we have, and there's so many, we have large organizations, and there's so many different small companies and individuals joining. And a lot of them, again, and it's funny because we can talk about the paper that GBA is writing, the crypto adoption and impact on governments, just from doing that research and seeing actually the media talking about it, about Bitcoin and talking about Ethereum, and you hear a lot of it now about cryptocurrencies. Just hearing that, so a lot of individuals will either reach out to me anonymously, send me an email, and I start talking to them, or they find the GBA website and they join calls, individual calls that we have open to the public to get more educated on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And I think that's the fabulous thing about the Government Blockchain Association. We really do focus on education, not necessarily marketing. I think it's kind of marketing too, but education to educate the world and governments and various organizations on the technology, but also seeing companies that want to work with other companies to do some type of product. It's sort of we're kind of like Indeed for blockchain, where companies come in there and they find other people that have skills, smart contracting skills, and they go off and do a proof of concept project.
I think the one thing you hit on before, Mark, which is quite exciting, especially for me, is if you look at, the exchange at the moment of goods between one person to another. Say, for example, I sell Michael my car. There's one process to go through in regards to, the information around that vehicle, how it's transferred and how it's pushed across. ultimately it's all data, right? It was to be captured in a standard format, such as blockchain. Then, say for example, myself selling Michael a car or a drink bottle or anything, realistically, one type of contract could be able to move those items back and forth. So the bartering component really becomes interesting with blockchain as well, doesn't it? Because it sort of unifies and simplifies the way that we deal with each other in regards to goods and services.
Mhm. Oh yeah, exactly. That the whole ability, and I just call it it's like uh, if then else statements, right? It's like proc statements on steroids or something like that. So it's amazing how that can happen from a code standpoint, and essentially it's just ones and zeros. When they say they want to try to outlaw cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, it's like a friend of mine said it's like outlawing math. You're outlawing math because it's just ones and zeros and algorithms, right? That's all it is. But the ability to do, again, had something physical in the digital realm and have it make decisions for you. Your money makes decisions for you instead of you making decisions about your money. Have all that happen in the background. It's just fascinating. And it's only going to get more and more fascinating in the future because there's a lot of smart people, smarter people than I am out there making these decisions.
Well, you're right, and it's a case of where people are not that. I'm not saying about the smarter part. It's more around, I guess, like you said, if you talk about people building these algorithms that are now integrating with blockchain to understand how things are moving within the chain and how individuals are behaving as well, then they can kind of say to you, well, have you thought about doing X, Y, and Z, or helping that decision making process as well? So I think when you have that merging, it's going to be very interesting, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. And I remember I posted this to a group, a government group, and saying, hey, can an algorithm replace a central bank? And if, no, I don't say that, no. But it's, can it? If you have enough of the algorithms and intelligence built into it to say, okay, if the economy is actually going down, let's put more liquidity into the market. Can it automatically do that? Or if there's too much, can they stop printing money through an algorithm and say, okay, hey, stop it, and it's all automated. Can you really actually represent a central bank in an algorithm? I think it's something that should be discussed.
I think it's a very interesting piece of information because, like you said, if you have the ability, and we do at the moment, where you're processing data in real time and able to analyze it, no human can do that, right? And that's the whole point. We built computers in the first place to do these complex tasks a lot faster than we can. So I think you're right. There's probably a bit of fear of a few people who might be not as important as they think they are once you start getting to that point. So, yeah. But the other thing I want to talk about as well at the moment, Mark, is, and let's focus on the US for the moment before we come back to Australia. We've seen, a huge amount of stimulus being pumped into the economy after coronavirus. We've had a very, very interesting recent development on Wall Street with, the GameStop component, where a lot of people feel like they're now being shut out of Wall Street as well. And these events have driven a lot more, focus towards blockchain and the alternative currencies as well. Have you seen a lot of that sort of spike as well?
So yeah, going back to the whole stimulus package, again, going back to the paper that we're writing, we talk about the various impacts from COVID on the various economies and how much. And it's duly right that they needed to pump up their economy, but they printed so much money. The U.S. is about to do 1.9 trillion, and again, everything changes day to day. I just heard that they want to do 4 trillion, but hopefully that's just a rumor. But they're talking about 1.9 trillion. He's going to, and U.S. president's going to fast track that. It's just putting more and more money into the economy, and the inflation thing is, they're trying to keep it in sync. Our Federal Reserve is trying to say, okay, let's keep the inflation down and interest rates low. Something's got to give eventually. So it's scaring a lot of people, and you can see the kind of the uncertainty and the fear where people where do we put our money? To fight inflation. You can see a lot of people are going into Bitcoin. A lot of people are investing in cryptocurrencies to offset that. It's just right now it's uncertain, but the idea of actually having this, and we haven't even talked about how you do inflation with cryptocurrencies. So it's a whole nother discussion. But I do see it that this stimulus is really worrying people. More and more you print money, and hopefully the cryptocurrency industry can have a solution to that.
Well, it is a scary amount of money too. Sorry, Mike, because I mean, for everyone listening, I think this stimulus package I read equates to about 36% of all money that's ever been released into the US economy over the past, since inception of the United States. So over the past, 200 years, this 1 year now has 30% of all money that's been released, which is, that's a huge bump. And obviously, like you said, Mark, it is needed, and most governments around the world have responded with a stimulus package. But I guess the hard thing to analyze is, well, is it the right amount? And like you said, then what are the inflation ramifications of that? Are we going to just be kicking the can down the road a few years, or is it better just to take the hit now and do a recovery process?
Yeah. And I've been reading this book, When Money Dies, which is a great book of, Weimar, Germany in the 1920s. And hopefully that won't happen. I mean, there's a lot of situations that happen to cause the deflation of the money or the deflation of the money, and then the hyperinflation happen. It's just nuts. But I think it's a reminder of how dangerous printing the money and not looking at the safeguards around it, and understanding that we just can't kick the can down the road, because it's eventually going to catch up. You're going to kick the can. You ever kick a can and have it bounce back to you? We're going to kick the can. It's going to fly back at us. So
that's interesting. It's interesting because, look, obviously from a US perspective and from an Australian perspective, obviously we've talked a lot about this in the past, but I'm finding a lot of people don't understand the money printing issue. Like, I talk to a lot of people, friends, family, anybody, right? And they just don't get it. I don't think they truly understand what it means. And there's not a lot of articles written about what printing devalues currencies, right? Also, it seems to be about getting the money and spending it, but not really what it means outside of that. Are you seeing that kind of, rejection or lack of understanding of what this means from people you talk to in the US? Or
Oh yeah, no, I do see that, and I don't want to blame the education system, but a lot of people they don't have a financial education background. And I remember going to a wedding, and one guy was talking about how much student debt he has, and he goes, "I would give all my student debt away if I could just have a course when I was in high school or grade school about understanding the financial system, monetary system." And you're right. A lot of people don't understand that. And all they see is, oh, we're going to have another stimulus check in our account, and a lot of families do need it, but they don't see the bigger picture. I've been in data strategy for about 20 years now, and I've always looked at the bigger picture. That's how you actually understand stuff. You see the bigger picture, and you actually start adjusting your risk and your future based on that. And when a lot of people don't do that, they're focusing what they need to do today, and not, they don't see what's happened tomorrow. And a lot of times, and I don't want to be critical of all governments, but a lot of them, they don't see that. They either kick it down for the next administration and let's just solve the here and now. But I do see that with a lot of individuals. They don't understand the ramifications of money being printed. And then when don't bring up cryptocurrency, because they're like, what does that mean? And it's hard. It's hard to educate them. So you educate them on the printing of money and the financial system, and then educating them on cryptocurrencies. But when you do that, it clicks in their head, and they go on YouTube, they go on online and start doing their own research, and you just make people more and more educated of what's happening and how they can take care of themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And this white paper, I think we're talking offline, but it's more targeted at the US Congress at the moment. Is that correct? The white paper that you're building?
Yeah. Well, the white paper, it is geared. It was originally geared, I guess you can say, towards the U.S. Congress, and we'd like them to see it and get an understanding of it. But the paper is it's more global. It has a lot of we talk from economies from Europe, from the European Union. We talk about Asia markets. We include Australia in it. We talk about Singapore. We talk about Russia, India, their economies, and again how they reacted to the COVID crisis, and how much money they've printed, and how they're handling cryptocurrency laws and privacy and ethics. So it's more of a global paper, but it's also great for any governments to look at it to see what each of the areas around the world, how they're handling the COVID crisis, the printing of money, and how they're understanding the cryptocurrency aspect of it too. So I think it's a very good paper, and it's very universal.
And do you find that the essence of it has been driven by the use case that is Bitcoin with the money printing in 2020? You're finding that all the interest really is around Bitcoin and everything else is a daylight second? Is that a summary?
Well, the paper, it's like anything else. When you create something, it's evolves. Say like an artist, you create something that's just clay, and as you start messing with it, it starts becoming something. When we first started writing the paper, it was mainly Bitcoin. But then you say, okay, Bitcoin in and of itself, has a use case. But then you have all these other tokens and cryptocurrencies that do many other things. So it started gearing and sort of expanding into that, where you can have tokens for the on balance sheet, off balance sheet swaps, derivatives markets, decentralized finance, DeFi. So the paper went more into cryptocurrencies in general, and Bitcoin is referenced, but it is in and of itself something unique. But it started everything, right? So you can't put it down or not talk about it. But the paper expands into everything that has to do with cryptocurrencies and finance, especially tokens.
In the past, we've seen, a big swing. Like, I mean, we had the 70s, we had the petrodollar, that we moved toward gold standard, when it comes to fiat currency. When it comes to blockchain, I mean, I guess, that's part of the goal, right? To look at how we sort of come to a centralized agreement on, what that baseline value is. I mean, we spoke before about things like inflation, and at the moment, there's no kind of use case for that when it comes to blockchain, right? It's simply user driven. So when it comes to sort of settling on a standardized method of blockchain, is that part of the goal as well, Mark? Does it work towards something that, can be utilized worldwide and everyone agrees that this is the standard that we'll then, hang a hat on?
Yeah, I think it's utopia, right? That everybody hopes that it's going to get to the point. But the technology, you can do that. And I brought up earlier when I was talking about Bitcoin and the whole crypto economics piece of it. What's fascinating again about blockchain is just the aspect of all these sciences put into one. Again, going back to Satoshi Nakamoto's paper, but crypto economics and the beauty of blockchain, you use cryptography to secure the past, right? Where you have add stuff to the ledger and everything's in there. So cryptography actually secures the past, right? But then when you actually start looking at the blockchain system and the incentives that's built into it, you have incentives to secure the future, right? That everybody obeys these rules in this system. And if they obey the rules, then they're rewarded with cryptocurrency, right? But if they break the rules, it's just, time and money and all that stuff. And, it's just not going to work. But again, the whole idea of cryptography and blockchain to secure the past, and then economics or crypto economics to secure the future, I think it's a beautiful thing. And that's some of the details that people just don't understand. And it's very powerful. Before the Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, we had all these technologies, but he put it together beautifully to create this Bitcoin network. It's just fascinating.
With central bank digital currencies, what's your thought on that? I know I've got my opinion. I know Karl has, but what's your thoughts on? I think it's really per country or per jurisdiction, really, that makes a difference where it's implemented. But what's your thoughts on it to date about where it's going?
To date, which is interesting, and I think it was in the news. Was it this morning or might have been yesterday that the Bank of Korea just said that stable coins are not virtual currencies, but actually digital fiat. So, which I think is interesting. So again, it's a change on it. Again, it all comes down to definition. And let me before I get into central bank digital currency, that's one thing, is having a classification, a global classification of all these terms and definitions, because everybody has a different. Some people call it digital currency, virtual currencies, crypto assets, digital currencies. There's all these different type of definitions around the world, and we need to have some kind of classification. If you have a common classification, then everybody can work off that. Investors can work off that. Risk managers can work off that. You can start having more and more people understand cryptocurrencies, start valuating and all that. So that's badly needed right now, a global classification system for this information. I know Europe has done great with GDPR. Maybe they can do it with classification of these crypto assets and cryptocurrencies. But going back to central bank digital currencies, I think, and there's a couple aspects you can go with this. The central banks want to do it, and it's no doubt that they're going to get into this space. They're going to start using digital currencies, and hopefully they'll be able to use it for the greater good, right? Where they can actually provide money to the people's bank accounts quicker than cutting checks and all that. And you can see that would happen with the last stimulus checks in 2020 that the U.S. did. I think it's very beneficial there. But the idea of having a central bank digital currency, another aspect of it is control. So it's being able to control the flow of the money to the people. So, and the scary part of it is if something's bad's happened in the economy and people want to get their money and try to make a run on the bank, they can't, the central bank will stop. Say, hey, you can't have any of your money until we figure out the economy. So, I mean, that's another scary part of it. But I think they'll use them for international settlements, clearinghouses and stuff like that for bank to bank, and they'll have a retail side of it. But they might be late to the game. Okay, about what's happening, because all the tokens and cryptocurrencies are continuing to go forward and advance, and the central banks may be a little bit late to the game in my aspect for it to catch on. And if people have a decision between, or have to decide between a central bank digital currency and another token on the decentralized network DeFi, I think they might go with that than the central bank digital currency, because I still think 2008 is the financial crisis still in a lot of people's minds, and they don't have that trust in the existing financial institution framework right now. But it'll be interesting to see. And the last point I want to make is, I think from a central bank digital currency, again, we're in a currency race. China is ahead of everybody in this space, and I think they're the 500-pound gorilla in the room. And then I say the 400-pound gorilla is what Facebook wants to do with Libra. So you have the private digital currency, and then you have the government central bank digital currency. And again, it's a currency war. Someone's going to win out. I don't think it's going to be one coin, like Lord of the Rings, one ring to rule them all, one token to rule them all. It's going to be a basket of them. There's going to be different ones. Fiat's going to be around. I think fiat is going to be around because I think they need each other. Cryptocurrency and fiat, central bank digital currency, it's going to be a whole plethora of this big digital basket.
It's funny. Yeah, funny you say that. Like, for me, the theory behind digital central bank digital currencies, from a monetary policy point of view and stimulus point of view, you can customize stimulus to an individual. So, for example, a student might get less money of stimulus than compared to a family member who's in their 40s who's got 2 kids. You can send money directly to them that's customized to their situation, and that's more efficient and better use of allocation of printed money, let's just say that, fabricated money. But also, there's also the efficiency of taking interest from people's bank accounts with negative interest rates. I know that's been a kind of a real, probably more of a conversation I'm seeing in Europe, in media, I would say, not elsewhere. But are you seeing that kind of conversation with the GBA? Has that kind of been raised?
I haven't seen that about it being removed like that, but going back to the whole control aspect of, I hear people talk about the whole control and being able to move your own money without someone else controlling it. Again, the whole point of blockchain is be decentralized, no centralized middleman, and it looks like the central banks are that. They're still the middle person, right? They're still the central part of it. I haven't seen any discussion about the negative interest rates, but I have heard in a lot of circles talking about the uniform basic income, UBI, and how it impacts that. So there's been a lot of discussions around that. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very early days, isn't it, in general, at the moment, of all this stuff. It just shows how early. Look, Bitcoin's 11 years old, 10 years old now. It's still very, very young in the whole big scheme of things, and so forth. But what in your position with the GPA in the future, what are you seeing is holding back blockchain from growing, becoming mainstream? So what are the things you're seeing, that makes hold it back?
Yeah. So again, like you said, it's very early stages still. But what's holding it back? There's still a lot. Again, it's still early. There's still a lot of concerns with it. Again, smart contract hacks. There's something that I think it's Vitalik Buterin, I think his name is. Vitalik, the guy does Ethereum, talks about the trilemma, right? You have decentralization, security, and scalability. And if you have too much scalability, then decentralization and then security is going to be affected. So there's still a lot of issues around that, around coding, around interoperability is a big deal, right? Having chains talk to each other, and existing infrastructure from the banking industry work with these new decentralized financial systems. So there's a lot of things that still need to be worked out, but it will happen. It will eventually happen. I've never seen anything in this space degress, right? Go back to where they started. It's always been progressing, and there's always people building and making smarter things. And it's just, again, I'm just fascinated about when Satoshi Nakamoto wrote this paper. Did he realize that in 2021 that all these coins are going to be around? We're going to be talking about this, and there's central bank digital currency coming up. It's just again, it's fascinating.
Definitely. And look, this year is obviously the year will be the Bitcoin with more printing going on globally. I know the European Bank printed something like $900 billion in December, which wasn't really well reported, I would say, in media. But it's another contribution to this global stack of printed money. But obviously, Bitcoin will do pretty well on the back of that during 2021. But do you see potential bear markets because of the lack of maturity in the underlying infrastructure in the market and the functionality and all the other projects? Do you think there's more of a bear market coming pretty quickly after this year?
After this year, I'll see it. I see a bear market again. It's everybody's watching inflation, right? They don't want to see deflation, so everybody's watching that. The bear market again. Everybody's talking about a bubble. I don't know. I don't know if it's a bubble or not. I don't. It could be because everybody's investing into non-tangible assets and all these stocks and all this stuff. But I can see it's right now it's a bear market. But again, it depends on if the governments continue to print money. I think a lot of people are going to be starting to again put money into crypto and eventually slow down with the market and be concerned about if it's a bubble and the inflation that they don't want to lose your money. Again, they don't know where to put it right now, and a lot of people are putting it in Bitcoin.
There are a lot of alternate investors at the moment, I think, and given the current situation globally, they're looking for something to put their money into. This week we saw obviously Bitcoin, Michael, shoot across 45K USD again, so it's jumped. And I think some of that might have been on the back that now Tesla, I guess, the first big company that said, yes, we're going to accept Bitcoin for payment for our cars. Yeah. So do you think, Mark, this might be a bit of a trigger event where other people are going to jump in now that someone sort of put their hand up and said, okay, we'll go first and see who follows?
Oh yeah, I think you'll have other big companies come in. A rumor had just right before I got on the call, I was reading something about Oracle being the next one to jump in, saying that they're going to invest in it and buy some Bitcoin. And the thing about it, and this is what people we understand this, but some of these companies don't understand. There's only a finite number of Bitcoins, right? And get yours while you can, because eventually these institutional investors that are getting into it, they're going to start buying them all up. They are, and it's going to drive the price higher. A lot of people are concerned at the volatility of it, how it's up at, I think it went 45 up to 48, and it's going to most likely drop down again. Just people hedging and buying it and all that. But as it becomes more and more scarce, it's going to continue to grow. It really is.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing. I think that's probably got a lot of people scared. From a traditional sort of retail investor perspective, is that if they miss out, it's similar to where they are now in the current fiat market, right? Where they will have no real sway or power to do anything in regards to, the value of particular things. So, should there be some sort of intervention on how these are allocated? Or do you think it's free market tough?
So I think that's where, again, you brought the idea about GameStop, and the shorters were really upset about it, trying to get the regulators involved, and the regulators go, you want us to take it away for them, we're going to take it away from you. They're like, okay, but you see that, and there's again, it goes back to, I think the regulators can help out but not hamper innovation. And I think a lot of people do not want to have the regular. It's kind of like the Wild West right now. Everybody's doing stuff and creating everything, and the regulators are just playing catch up. They don't want to have it. Again, I compare it to the early internet, also all the development and all that, and then the regulations came around for monitoring the internet and the fiber and how you do capping the data going across. I think it's needed. You do want to have some kind of security on the person, like my grandmother who wants to get into it, but needs to have some kind of security, and you don't have everybody take her money. It's a fine line, and then you have people that are just going to say no. It's like anything else. From the regulator background, once you create new regulations, the banks always find, they get great lawyers, people that understand the system to find the holes in it. The regulators are going to create something for cryptocurrency, and someone, is going to come out and find something new to go around it. It's just the way it works, the way the world turns. And
and on top of that too, like Karl and I talked to a lot of people about crypto in general. People ask questions around Bitcoin. Like, by the end of the decade, it can hit $1 million or more, right? And price, which is huge, right? But the thing we talk about is don't sell it. A lot of people want to sell it when it goes up and, cash in and so forth. But really, it's more of a long-term investment. A lot of people don't understand that. fine. Obviously, it's not a financial advice what we're talking about, but do you see it as long-term investment, Bitcoin?
So again, it's the holdables, right? The people that hold on for dear life. Some people want to, again, if we have the normal or the run of the day people that are buying it, they want it to go up and they sell, right? And they spend stuff on it, and then the tax man comes up and says, "Hey, guess what? You owe us some money." But I see it as a long-term investment. I consider, again, digital scarcity. I think I consider it like gold, right? Digital gold, right? So you can invest in it and it's going to keep your money safe in the long run. Or it could be like a nightmare I had. I had a dream the other day where this is all a big sham, and we fell into the big spider web, and all our money was going to be gone. So, but no, I see it as a long-term investment. That where people want to put their money from a long term. It's not going away. Bitcoin's not going away, especially when it reaches its max of 21 million published that are generated. That more and more people are going to want it, and you're going to be the one. I have a Bitcoin, and it's going to be worth a lot. It's interesting. I think it is a long term investment.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And look, the big thing that we also discuss is using it as collateral for loans. So if you want to buy property with your Bitcoin, don't sell it. It goes up in value while you have used it as collateral, and it gets held in escrow from a bank. But obviously, there's not a lot of institutions offering those products right at the moment. So, you'll probably see the large ones like the JP Morgans probably do it first for customized products for the high net worths or family offices or private funds. But I think that's where you'll probably see some real change happen when we can start using it for collateral for property, for example.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know Carl's excited for it.
Anything to reduce the mortgage is a good thing. I guess we were just lucky. I think everyone here probably got in pretty early on the train. Like you said, Mark, for me, this is it's a buy and hold. Like it's not going to go away. And I think you're right. The closest thing you can compare it to is a precious metal or asset that will increase over time, or it has use. Right? It's not something that doesn't have use. It is a proven technology. It's very secure, it's very safe, but there is still a lot of misinformation, I think, out there. And it's great to see organizations like GBA trying to sort of fill the gap and say, well, no, come and work with us directly. We'll show exactly, the practical uses you can have with blockchain and why you should use it.
Yeah, exactly. When you start seeing commercials on TV from like a bank or a group saying Bitcoin, it's a danger to the society. We need to have laws, and then it's really threatening the total fabric of society. That you want to have disinformation out there, so people will be scared of it. And we'll see. I think it's not at that point yet, but it's getting more traction. Again, going right from GBA standpoint, going and educating people about it. And a lot we see, again, going back to the paper that we've written, we see a lot of laws within Saudi Arabia and even Japan where if a crypto exchange is going to be worked out of that or be headquartered out of Japan, that they can offer services, but they also have to offer education to educate like the citizens that, what's the difference between regular fiat and cryptocurrency. So they have to do the education aspect. And I think that's great to educate people so they know what they're getting into. That's the only way you can keep people safe. And that's the first part. It's just from the investor standpoint. And the second education is understanding the bigger picture. Again, going back to strategy, understanding the bigger picture of what this means for the world, right? For the global financial markets.
I think this white paper is going to be pretty good, actually, it sounds like. It's got a lot of information to educate people and bring them up to speed, I think. But when is this going to be released, this white paper? When's it scheduled to be released?
So it was initially scheduled for May 2021. So I'm hoping to get that, still stick to the May aspect of it, but I hope we get a decent draft out. Let's see, it's February, March, hopefully around April. I would hope to get a decent draft out so people can start looking at it. And I read the paper. Obviously, I help collaborate to it. And I can say it's actually a very, very good paper. There's a lot of information in it, and it's good.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure we do a special release on that for our network when this comes out so everyone can get access to it. So, yeah, definitely, for sure. Well, Mark, look, I'd like to thank you very much and on behalf of Karl and I for coming on today. Like, your knowledge of this space is obviously second to none. I think it's been proven from your feedback today. But look, thank you very much. We'll definitely get you on a round table, I think, with some of our other guests we've had on who are blockchain focused. And I think it'll be a very interesting discussion.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Michael and Karl, for having me. It's been great. I love talking about this. I could talk about it all the time. We can have a glass of whiskey and talk about it.
That sounds like an even better idea. And for, we'll leave Mark's links as part of this podcast, as well as links to gbaglobal.org. But definitely have a look and check it out, because I think this is the one thing that Australia needs to follow suit and start to bring some more of the private and government perspective together. So thank you very much, Mark. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.